Welcome back to part 2 of our breakdown of PFF's top 10 draft prospects of the 2024 NFL Draft. We are going to be talking all about 6 through 10, all that and more coming up on the House Call. Welcome back into the Gridiron segment. My name is Kyle. I'm joined by Joe and Sammy. We are going to be talking all things NFL Draft, number 6 through 10 on PFF's big board. Before we get to that, I've got to shout out our amazing sponsor at Vivid Seats. Look, football season might be over, but I have good news. There are other sports people. Spring training has just kicked off. There's basketball in full swing. Hockey is so good right now. So you have got to get yourself to a sporting event. There is some kind of team you can go check out. I know there is. And you've got to use the best ticket buying platform on the market. I am talking about, of course, Vivid Seats. We are talking about guaranteed tickets, the best prices you will see. And if you use the link in our description, you will save yourself even more money. So get yourself to a sporting event and get your butt in a seat using Vivid Seats. Thank you to Vivid Seats for sponsoring this episode. Now, we have got to talk about these draft prospects, so I'm going to throw it right to Joe, who's going to pull up the PFF big board. We are talking, of course, about number 6, Rome Odunze. I have been excited.
False. It is changed. It is Joe Alt. It is Joe Alt now.
Kyle just realizing this for the first time. They bamboozled you, Kyle. They bamboozled you. Those damn schmutz at PFF.
Joe Alt is currently our number 6. Rome Odunze is still in the top 10, and we will discuss that soon, obviously. But we are going to go ahead and start with Joe Alt. Now, there are a few things that have been certain since the dawn of time, essentially, in this draft, is that, tons of quarterbacks are going to go in the first round. Marvin Harrison's the best prospect in this draft, and Joe Alt is the number 1 tackle in the draft, bar none. He was rated as the second best tackle in the league, in the NCAA this year. He's got a 90.7 grade on the season. Now, everyone says PFF's offensive line grades are a little wonky, but you know what? I've watched tape on Joe Alt. He 100% deserves this. He's also a massive human being at 6'8", 322. He is everything you want in a starting tackle in the NFL. He's only 21 years of age, so you could be locking down the blind side of your offensive line for a long time. But let's go ahead and get into the statistics here a little bit. Joe Alt played 12 games, 1 sack, 2 hits, 2 hurries, all at the left tackle position, 697 snaps, 885 the year before. He did not give up a single sack last year, gave up 6 hurries. And, if you look at Notre Dame's schedule, the issue a lot of people have with Notre Dame's schedule is that they pick and choose who they play. They are not affiliated with any conference, which I think is stupid. I think that they should be affiliated with the conference. If you're not affiliated with the conference, you shouldn't be able to play in a bowl game, but I digress. They do have, they had to play some respectable teams. So you do get to see them go against some really tough talent. Ohio State, they had USC, they did have a Clemson there. So, they played some tough talent here and there, but most of the time they were playing people like, I believe that's Central Michigan, Navy. I believe that's LSU on there, maybe. So, they did play some decent games, but Joe Alt is 110% the guy you want locking down the left tackle spot on your offensive line. If your team is drafting in the top 10 and you're not looking for a quarterback, but you need some offensive line help, this is the guy. Like 110%. Do not get it twisted at all. Kyle, I know you and I like to use that phrase quite a bit, but Joe Alt is that guy. He's very, very good. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it to Sammy here. Sammy, obviously, the Dolphins have had up and down offensive lines. I know you're a huge Dolphins fan. And so what better person to start with than a guy who probably would love to have Joe Alt locking down the Tua Tagovailoa's blind side, huh, man?
Look, I'm not going to lie. Our blind side is at the right tackle position, so that's a bit of a – so I don't know how – if Joe Alt
Tua throws with the other hand.
If Joe Alt can do a better job than Austin Jackson, then I will gladly take him. Austin Jackson did have a breakout year this past year, so I'm not going to say get rid of the guy, but what I am going to say is Joe Alt is a physical monster, but is actually the most technically sound tackle I think I've seen at his size. He does not throw his weight around like you'd expect somebody who's 6'8" and 300 pounds to do. The man is technically sound, and it's actually insane. So like Joe said it best. Like if you need a left tackle, which I can guarantee you a lot of teams in the first 10 picks need offensive linemen, this is the guy to get. Now, ironically enough, I've seen a lot of mock drafts say that this guy is going to slip a bit, to the 10th pick, and that Olu Fashanu is probably a better overall prospect to get because he's, more, I guess, versatile. Look, you cannot teach one sack in 2 years. Okay. You just can't teach that. Now, on top of him being a great pass blocker, he's a mauler on the run. And he's, like I said, 6'8", 300 pounds. He can move on top of all of that. That is ridiculous. How can somebody 6'8" be 300 pounds and move that fast? Zion Williamson, I thought, was an anomaly. Here comes Joe Alt completely, destroying the laws of physics. I think if you're a franchise that needs a tackle, you draft Joe Alt. There are no questions asked. I understand a lot of people like Olu Fashanu. I understand that. But you got to understand this. We're dealing with somebody who's a physical freak. He's one of the most technically sound tackles we've ever seen. I understand Olu Fashanu. I even understand there's a guy from Oregon State, Talise Fuagu. He's great too. Joe Alt is levels above. And look, Notre Dame, again, is one of those places where they breed offensive linemen consistently.
They really do.
Joe Alt has the potential to be better than some of the best offensive linemen to come out of Notre Dame. It helps that he's 6'8", 300 pounds. It helps also that Notre Dame is a factory for offensive linemen. So I don't know what exactly GMs are thinking to do at the offensive line position, but if Joe Alt's not at your draft board and you need a tackle, you're kind of psychotic. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I mean, it's perfect. It's a perfect breakdown of him. I mean, that's everything that anyone who's watched him would say. The funny thing is, if he does fall, it just means that a better team who needs left tackle help is going to get him. And so you're basically what you're talking about now is you're talking about a guy who could fall because of some value. And at that point, he goes somewhere that is going to make them significantly better because, like you said, he's an all-around left tackle guy. He is probably the best, most technically sound, just massive human being who can do everything at the left tackle position you would want them to do. No teaching necessary. This is a plug and play day one starter. And basically, I know I've been saying a lot in the chat. You guys have seen me say this a lot in the chat. Top 10 picks don't sit. You do not draft someone in the top 10 that you sit. It is the weirdest thing in me when I look and I see people say, oh, this team's thinking about getting this guy, but they're going to want him to sit behind a veteran for a little while. Why? Why would you draft that person at that position and then sit them? If you were looking for a left tackle and you need to teach them something in the top 10, that is not the left tackle for you people. Let's be fair. Joe Alt is the left tackle for you. So Kyle, I'm going to go to you here on this one, man. You're a Bears fan. They may have a shot at this guy. He's in that range where if he falls a little bit, and let's be fair, the Bears, I know it'd be it's a lot sexier of a pick, right? To have 1 and 9 and get a quarterback at 1 and then get a wide receiver at 9. But if you were to get, a quarterback at 1 and get Joe Alt at 9, now you've solidified the blind side with probably the best tackle we've seen in the draft in years. Outside of maybe, I'm blanking on his name right now, and I can't believe I'm doing this again. Detroit Lions.
Penei Sewell.
Penei Sewell.
Yeah, I'm about to bring out Penei Sewell because what did the Lions do? They didn't make the sexy pick. They went with the best offensive tackle in the draft, and what did they get? An amazing offensive tackle
and a part-time tight end who can catch balls.
And an insane tight end. Oh my God. And see, my perfect draft, get you a Marvin Harrison Jr. at 2, get you a Joe Alt at 9. That's my perfect draft. I've said it before. I'll say it again. That is my perfect draft. I digress. There is one word to describe Joe Alt to me, and that is perfect. That is perfect. He not only has unreal technique, he not only has unreal physicals, just unbelievable physical phenom. It can't be overstated. Comes from an NFL pedigree. He is the son of John Alt, the all-time great Chiefs offensive lineman. He understands what it means to be in the league. Like, he's not going to be out of his depth like some of these, draft prospects we see that have a lot of talent, but sometimes get caught up in the star, get caught up in all of that. Joe Alt is not going to be like that. He is, I cannot speak highly enough about Joe Alt. And if the Bears get Joe Alt, woo, I'm a happy camper.
I mean, I think anyone at the end of the day, I mean, there's always people who are fans of teams who are like, oh, I want the sexy pick. I want the big boom pick, And I think that true football fans, people who actually look at their team and know, right? You see what they are. You see what they need. If you were to get Joe Alt, that is a building block on the offensive line. There is no way that your offensive line is not better than it was last year outside of like maybe 3 teams who will never even have a shot at Joe Alt unless they trade and mortgage their future to go get him. He will be that guy. And I honestly would not be upset if I was a fan of any team drafting in this range that would get Joe Alt. And there's even rumor of Brock Bowers, like we said, dropping and Joe Alt going earlier because, you think about the Chargers and what the Chargers need in this life, like in this, I say in this life, but in this sort of thing, Justin Herbert needs protection. And Joe Alt solidifies that for you. So it would not surprise me for the Chargers to go with him instead of something else. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. But we're going to talk about a guy who I think is an overreach at 7. I think this is the first guy on PFF's big board that I have a huge issue with. And I've had an issue with it all year because I don't think he's even in the conversation of top 5 corners coming in this draft. Ooh. I don't even think he's in that conversation. Cooper DeJean out of Iowa has not ran his 40 yet. I don't know if he's going to run a 40 at the combine. I was checking out the NFL combine stuff. We have not seen any corners run a 3-cone drill yet. He's 6'1", 207. He runs a 4.5 40. He has played multiple positions in press and zone coverage as well as just man-to-man. But he's never played safety. Unfortunately, at 4.5 in the NFL, you are not playing corner. It's just not happening. I'm sorry. It's not going to work. He is a safety, but he's never played safety. So this is for a guy who is going to end up having to play out of a position of what he is valued at, right? Plus he played in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is not known for speed. Okay. Let's be 100% clear. As a Big Ten guy, I've been a Big Ten guy my whole life. They don't generate burners. I think the closest thing, there's been a couple, but they don't generate just absolute burners, right? Ohio State has put out a couple of wide receivers recently that are pretty good, but that's realistically the only school in the Big Ten that has any sort of speed to it. And even then, when you put them up against an SEC team, they usually get ran off the fucking field because they're not fast enough, right? So Cooper DeJean, I think he padded his stats like that, but you even see there in the score, like from 2022 to 2023, he has regressed. Now, is that scheme? Is that fit? Or is he just finally getting to this position where, he's not as good as what you'd hope to be? I mean, he didn't have an overly hard schedule. I mean, look at this. Who's the team that you're looking at here that had killer talent? Who's on here that's got a wide receiver going somewhere?
I don't see a single first round wide receiver in that.
Yeah, not a single first round wide receiver. I mean, so he regressed against subpar talent.
That man coverage grade is alarming.
Isn't it though? His coverage grade is okay. His completion percentage when target is good. His zone coverage is good. But you know what this sort of reminds me of? This looks like a Miles Bryant type guy.
Oh no. Here we go.
Doesn't it? Like think about it. A guy who can play zone very well, lines up in the slot, is probably his best position if he's a corner. Doesn't have the elite speed to keep up with guys. Maybe the short area quickness isn't there. But
he has good, his reactions kind of vary. Like sometimes he's quick to react, and sometimes you see a corner or wide receiver do a comeback route, and he doesn't react till the QB throws the ball. But the thing is, he has such great athletic traits that he might transition to safety. He could, with the right training, transition to safety seamlessly. Now, The athletic traits help with that. The problem is we haven't seen it. And when you don't see, you like have a kind of doubt, a skepticism, if you may, if he can adapt. As a corner, look, I don't trust him as a corner, but if you put him in a scheme where it's a more coverage based, he can work, he can fit. But that's the problem. In an era where man is more popular than ever, he's not a corner that you take.
I mean, I'll say it. This cornerback class is good. I think there's a couple of guys who can be bona fide number one corners in the league.
The bottom line is this. I don't think he's a better corner than the other corner we're going to discuss. And even the corner that's outside the top 10, I don't think he's better than. I think saying he's outside of top 5 is a bit of a stretch. I think in coverage, he's good enough to where you can say, you know what? He's good in coverage. He's very athletic. He should not be listed as a corner, in my opinion. He's more of a defensive back. And that's kind of why I think some of the teams that are going to be later in the first round or early in the second are going to take a swing at him. So, look, this is the first white corner we're going to have since 2002. So we're going to give him a shot anyway, okay?
You got no business running with them boys, all right? You got no business running with them boys.
That's
but
crazy.
No, I agree.
No business running is crazy.
I'm gonna be honest with you, right? I agree that he's a safety or a defensive back. Though that's what he is. He's never played it, but I do believe his skill set could allow him to transition. The learning curve may be there. Honestly, I think that if your team needs a safety, this guy could probably be is probably the best safety who's never played, or in this draft, even though he's never played safety. I think he's better than the other guys. I think this safety class is weak, and if you look at Cooper DeJean, you're like, hey, we need a guy who can play that, and we value that position very highly, and we think this could be the guy. Then go get him. But this is not that is not where you take a guy at 7, right? Like he should not be on the big board at 7. I just Nate Wiggins ran a 4.28 today in the 40-yard dash. Quinyon Mitchell ran a 4.33. Those are my top 2 corners. Not in that order. I think Quinyon Mitchell's CB1. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he is. I watched him at the Reese Senior Bowl. I've watched the tape. That guy literally looks like the second coming of Darrelle Revis. He just glues to people, runs route for him, knows exactly where he's at. And like I said, he lined up with Roman Wilson, and Roman Wilson in one-on-ones was toasting every corner he went up against at the Reese Senior Bowl. Quinyon Mitchell was in his hip pocket and ran routes for that guy. 3 times. And we were saying that Roman Wilson had probably one of the best Reese Senior Bowls at the wide receiver position we've seen in a hot minute when it comes to upping your draft stock. So the fact that he did that while Roman Wilson was getting his flowers, that's insane. But again, Kyle, I'll go to you on this one, man. We have seen this story play out before. And I honestly, I think he can be a good player. I'm with Sammy. I think that if he can translate the safety, he's a slot guy. But you think if some of these slot wide receivers right now, these are explosive guys now. Like, you can't be slow. And, he may have been able to be serviceable in that respect in college, but the speed's different at the NFL level. And that's what concerns me about him playing anything but safety.
No, absolutely. And the thing is, if he can transition into safety, my comp for him is like a Tyrann Mathieu. Like, he can be that good. He's got those instincts, like you said, Sammy. The biggest concern is that speed, though. Like, in the man coverage grade really shows. If you're struggling with that speed in the Big Ten, like, come on, you can't be doing that. I don't necessarily know. It's such a coin flip, I feel like, because I don't necessarily know if he will end up transitioning to safety, if that's even a choice he does make. I feel like it is something that he almost has to do. And he's not, gosh, I don't know how much the combine's going to help him. I'll just put it that way. He's got a fair amount going against him already, and I don't know how much the combine's going to help him.
Yeah, I mean,
do you guys think by any chance, do you guys think that maybe if he does perform well at the combine, that they're going to keep him at corner and just to see if he can? Or do you guys think that they're just going to be like, you're just going to label him, hey, yeah, you're a safety? Like, there's no, like, that's kind of where I'm at. I think the performance at the combine is going to matter a lot, because I think as a defensive back, the combine matters, in my opinion. Maybe sometimes, maybe it doesn't. it really varies. But a guy like Cooper DeJean with so much to prove, especially in press coverage, you got to know what kind of speed you're dealing with here. So I also think if you put him more towards the box, I think versatility in the NFL is the name of the game. So if he is versatile and you can put him in the box and you can put him outside, he can, again, there's a place for him. But it really is going to depend how this combine goes. Cornerback is a stretch. I know they're listing him as a cornerback, but it just seems a far-fetched that he stays in that position.
Well, I mean, they're listing him as a corner because he played that's 630 snaps as a corner, right? Like, and I agree. Like, he played one deep, 23 box, 23 slot, and I believe it's 28 on the D line. So he played all over Iowa's defense. So the versatility is there. My thing is, and I actually liked your Tyrann Mathieu comp because he's a little taller than Tyrann, a little heavier than Tyrann, and Tyrann Mathieu ran a 4.51. So, I mean, that's a pretty good comp. And I agree with Sammy that his combine is going to be 100% what keeps him where he's at or sends him down draft boards. Because even if he runs a 4.5, his 3-cone drill, he has to run a 3-cone. I think this is one of the corners that has to run a 3-cone drill to prove that he can make those quick, timely cuts, and he has to be at the top of the board in the 3-cone. I think he has to be, no shit, at the end of the day, a top 10 3-cone drill guy. Like, I agree. When it's all done, he has to be. I'm talking like, you think about how good some of these wide receivers are, how shifty some of these guys are, and some of these slot guys that are going to be coming out, Jacob Cowling, Malik Washington. He has to be, like, Cooper DeJean has to be in the top 10 best 3-cone drills in this draft to even be considered, at this point, in my mind, a first-round draft pick. Because if he doesn't run a good 3-cone and is 40 times slow, you're drafting a guy to play a position that he's never played.
Right. And versatility can only help you so much, right? I mean, I remember when we were describing Isaiah Simmons as a freak athlete, and he's one of the most coveted prospects in the entire NFL draft just because he could play anywhere. And now we're fast forward now, and where has that versatility gotten him? He's got pretty much, he didn't work out in Arizona. He went to New York, and we thought he would shine there. Didn't really. Like, versatility can only get you so far. So Cooper DeJean really needs to stand out in this combine, and he has to stand out quickly because corners come and go in the NFL. And if he can't step up as a corner or even as a safety, buddy, you're cooked.
And you talk about, the corner position is literally the most handcuffed position in the NFL.
Right.
You're not getting the calls. You're like, wide receivers can push off on you all day. They can tug on you all day. And you think about it, you're already playing with one hand behind your back. Add in the fact that you're not overly fast. And suddenly you're in a bad spot, right? Like, I think his ball hawking skills, the way he reacts to like routes and where the quarterback's arm is going, not before the football even leaves the quarterback's hand, really sets him up well to be a safety. Sammy said it perfectly. Yeah. He has all of the skill sets to be a safety. It's just, can he make the leap? And I think he can play box safety. I think, he's got the size. He's 207, 6'1", so he can come down the box a little bit if you need him to. He can guard those tight ends. He's big enough, I think, to guard tight ends. I think he's also good enough to play free safety and let him just roam the back end of the back third and let him get after it. I think he could be a really, really good player in there. I just don't think he's a top 10 prospect. That's essentially why I think his positionment on this board is my first big knock.
Red flag for sure. I don't know why he's so high.
He's been there the whole offseason.
They really love versatility in PFF, I guess, because there's no reason he should be.
I mean, his I will say this about him. All right, his completion percentage when targeted is 43.5%. His passer rating when targeted is 37.
It's good. It's great.
So it's there, but at the same time, it's the Big Ten, man. There's no quarterbacks going in the
tape too. Yeah, it's the tape too. Like you see the tape. That's like, when you watch the tape, you can tell he's explosive in spurts, but sometimes he's late to react, and his timing is an issue. So that's going to be a problem in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. But we're going to move on to a guy who doesn't have explosive issues, doesn't have timing issues, and probably, honestly, is one of the most durable wide receivers in this draft next to the guy who I think is like, you know, if you could get this guy at like, you know, Best Buy, you could go to like, you know, Newegg and get Joshua Cephas, and they do similar things, and they look very like, I know it's crazy. I did a thing on it. I said he was the poor man's Rome Odunze. They played similar number of snaps. They both had very low drops. They both, you know, like their numbers are comparable, and they run similar style of football. And if you don't believe me, Steve Smith even came out and said that this dude was like Rome Odunze. So I'm not just talking out my ass. Steve Smith, and that was months after I said it. So I got to it first, Steve Smith. Don't even try to fucking steal my thunder. But we're going to go ahead and talk about Rome Odunze. Now, honestly, this guy probably could have won the Blitznikoff. He deserved it. He had a lot of yards, you know, just did insane stuff. He's young. He's 21.7 years old. He's 6'3", 215 pounds. So there are a lot. Like, he is the tallest wide receiver next to Marvin Harrison Jr. He's a little heavier than Marvin Harrison Jr. is. And he played in one of the most high-flying offenses in all of college football at Washington with Michael Penix Jr., who absolutely had a great year, but is more of a pure pocket passer, which is why he's not listed up there with some of those other quarterbacks plus health issues. But Rome Odunze, what can we say about this guy? His drop rate is one of the lowest in the league at 3.2%. He only had 3 drops all year, which is 2 more than Joshua Cephas. Just saying.
This is
You're unbelievably terrible, Joe.
I know. Well, he did have 140 more. He did have 29 more targets than Joshua Cephas.
Joshua Cephas merchant. My goodness.
Dude, I am, dude. I'm on that train, right? When he's great in the NFL, you remember I said it. But so Rome Odunze is listed as the 3rd best wide receiver on this board right now for PFF. I honestly believe that he could easily be number 2. I don't think he's got quite the skill set that Marvin Harrison Jr. does. I just think Marvin Harrison Jr. is in a realm of his own, but I think this guy can line up anywhere on the field you want him to line up. I really do. I think he can line up in the slot. I think he's already shown that 104 snaps this year. Most of his snaps were out wide, but he can line up anywhere on the field. You can put him in the slot. He's a mismatch because slot corners aren't big enough to guard him. You can put him out wide, and he's going to absolutely toast people because he can stop on a dime. He's got great hands, explodes towards the ball, you know, like just solid wide receiver. And that you can see that 92 receptions, 1,639 yards, 17.8 yards per reception, and 13 touchdowns for a national championship runner-up team. And he absolutely dominated a pretty stacked schedule. I mean, he played, you know, some pretty decent teams. Oregon, you know, they were there for a while. He played USC. He got Oregon State, Washington State, Oregon again, Texas, and Michigan. So he ran the gauntlet a little bit against some of these corners. We know that Oregon's got a couple of guys who are going to be drafted at the corner position here. Michigan's got a couple for sure. So he did not have an easy road because, you know, he was drawing the best guy, and he absolutely showed out. So, I mean, 2 years in a row, 1,000 yards. Obviously, his touchdowns went up. His yards per reception went up. But Kyle, I'm going to start with you on this one, man. This guy, I feel like if you're drafting in this position, like 8, 9, like I just about every mock I run, I think I was going to do a short, and I didn't because Belichick the Falcons hired their coach, and it wasn't Bill Belichick, and I had recorded it and got it edited, but I didn't get it posted in time. But my basic thing for the Falcons was sign Bill Belichick, sign Kirk Cousins, draft Rome Odunze, win the NFC South.
Wow. That is a plan.
That is
a plan.
Did you see that defense last year? The Falcons were decent on defense.
They just didn't have a center, and they're missing a number 1 and at wide receivers. And so they didn't have a quarterback, and they didn't have a number 1 wide receiver. So I was like, you know, you already got the running back. You've got an okay enough offensive line. It's not terrible. And all you really need
Chris Lindstrom's
is that number 1 wide receiver who's going to draw the number 1 corner, and then you got enough other talent in the wide receiver core to be an explosive offense.
Oh, Drake London's great. Let's not sleep on him.
No, I mean, Drake London, I think, is a solid 2. They need a 1.
Okay,
Rome Odunze is the 1. So I have been mocking Rome Odunze to the Falcons, and then news broke today that the Falcons are actually more bought into getting Kirk Cousins than they are getting Justin Fields. And I'm like, it's all coming together, baby. Go get yourself Go get yourself Kirk Cousins, go draft Rome Odunze, and have the best offense in the NFC South.
No doubt. No doubt. And it makes so much sense because Rome Odunze, oh gosh, we've been talking about it. He is so damn good. I saw a quote that he had just dropped at the combine of, 50-50 balls are more like 100-0 balls for me. And it's true. Like, he is a contested catch machine. You see it 75%, not necessarily 100, but that's ridiculous. The drop rate, there's so much to love about Rome Odunze's game. If you are picking within that like 7 to 10 range and Rome Odunze is there and you need a 1, this is your guy. He is phenomenal, had just such a great season, and you can see the position versatility, playing in the slot, playing out wide. It is so exciting to have the idea that maybe my Bears could get Rome Odunze if they end up going with like a Caleb Williams at 1, which I don't love, but I digress.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me, and I honestly think so. We talked about this in part 1. I said Malik Neighbors projected more to the slot. I think that he is a little lighter. He's a little shorter. I don't know, if how physical corners are in man and press, if he's got the ability to really line up outside on a consistent basis and win. I think he's got good release skills that could translate and help him win those one-on-ones on the outside. I think that he's a little shorter, and he's actually my wide receiver 3. I have Rome Odunze in my book higher than Malik Neighbors. I really, really do because of that. I think Rome Odunze has a size to line up anywhere you want him to line up. I think Malik Neighbors is going to get shoeholed into being more of a inside guy because even though he's got the speed out there, you just need him to be able to have a clean release. He needs to have a clean release to be able to use that speed, and I think that kind of hinders him in where he can line up. Whereas Rome Odunze, put him wherever you want in the formation, he's going to be a mismatch. They're going to have to find him and game plan for him and line up for him. That's the kind of wide receiver I think Rome Odunze is. I think Malik Neighbors, you're going to know where to find him. He's going to be in the slot. But, Sammy, I'll go to you on this one, man. If you had to choose between Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors, which one are you taking, and what do you love about Odunze's game?
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm reading this right because this doesn't even seem real. I think the average a great contested catch rate is like over 50%. This man has 25% over 50%. So like, what are we really doing here? Like, I really like Malik Neighbors. I think after the catch, he's probably the best in the draft. But if we're talking at the catch point, if we're talking about a great release as a route runner, Marvin Harrison Jr., if he doesn't exist, Rome Odunze is going like second overall. That's how good this cat is. But it's as simple as Marvin Harrison Jr. exists. So we have to live that in that reality. What my comfort Rome Odunze, ironically, and it wasn't even my comp. It was actually Brett Coleman's comp. I'm a Brett Coleman merchant. He said his comp was DeAndre Hopkins, and I absolutely see it. Like the way he contorts his body to make some of these catches, how aggressive he is. My only gripe with him is his explosiveness, and it's a very small gripe. His explosiveness after the catch. I think that's something that we haven't really seen, but it doesn't really matter if you're bringing the ball in. It doesn't. So
it doesn't matter what you do after the catch if
exactly.
You always.
Look, mind you. I think Malik Neighbors is 1,000% a top 10 prospect. Yeah, I'm not here to crap on him. What I am saying is, and I'm not saying there's a huge gap, but there is a gap between Rome Odunze and Malik Neighbors, in my opinion. Look. All catches lead to Rome. I'm on this hype train 1,000%. And quite frankly, look, I don't know why he's even 8. What is this? Hold on. Let me see this. I'm going to check on my laptop real quick. How is this man? Look, I understand. I love Joe Alt. And I understand why he's that high. I think Rome Odunze is a better prospect. That's how high I am on him.
Yeah.
So,
and let's be fair here. We can back this up real quick for you, Sammy.
You can 1,000% argue. I'm not saying that like Joe Alt. I'm not saying that it's like a clearing at all. I think it's very close, but Rome Odunze is that good in my opinion. He's that good. I think he's a wide receiver 1. I like the Falcons. I do. I don't know what other I forget what other teams are in the top 10 that would be happy to take him. If he falls to the Chargers are taking him. I hope you guys know.
That's number 5. That would be the 5th.
He's going 5th overall. Then I think he's going. And you guys heard it here first. If the Chargers are picking 2 players, it's either Brock Bowers or it is Roma Dunze. It is no one else. I promise you it won't.
So I've been using PFF's mock draft simulator a little bit here, and there are 2 things that usually happen. The 2 things are the Chargers try to trade up with the Patriots at 3 and take MHJ.
My goodness.
In which case, Roma Dunze goes 4th overall, and then Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze go number 4 overall to the Cardinals. Or the Patriots stay at 3, take a quarterback, and the Cardinals take MHJ, and the Chargers take Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbors. So it's very, very possible, but I do think whichever one falls to this sort of spot in the draft, the Falcons are going to have their shot at them, and I think that either one would be better or would be good. I think that Roma Dunze is just better. But to back up Sammy's point here of just how good Roma Dunze is, he was 1st in deep catches, 1st in deep yards, and 1st in contested catches in the NCAA.
My goodness. Like that's literally like stats usually are not how we dictate college athletes at all. But if there was anything that dictated that Roma Dunze is a top 5 overall, is a top 5 prospect, that is it right there. If you're looking for a stat, that's it right there.
There it is.
It really is. And that's why I'm actually a huge Roma Dunze believer. I think that he's going to be very, very good. I think that, as far as the things he can do, like you said, Sammy said it best. If MHJ didn't, or was it you, Kyle, that said if MHJ didn't exist,
I stand by it too.
Odunze would be the best wide receiver in this draft. And the numbers are there to prove it. All right. He led the NCAA, if I'm not mistaken, in yards. He led the NCAA, if I'm not mistaken, in deep catches, as we just saw, and deep catch yards and contested catches. And as Sammy said, anything over a 50% conversion rate on 50-50 balls in contested catches is good. And he's 25% above the good mark. So that is in without really needing to say anything else, great. So, yeah, I'm a big Roma Dunze believer. I'm right there with you. But we're going to move on to a guy who could be lining up against Roma Dunze next season, and that is Nate Wiggins, who I actually is cornerback 1B for me. That is CB 1B right there. I am still a big Quinyon Mitchell fan out of Toledo. I think that Quinyon Mitchell is the second coming of Darrelle Revis. The guy just glues to people. He plays really good man coverage. He runs really, really fast. Literally look at him.
High.
Look at Quinyon. Go look.
I want
Quinyon
you to
Mitchell.
Understand what you're saying when you say Darrelle Revis.
I
really hope you understand.
Mitchell.
The name Darrelle Revis has a very special
burning hatred in you. Yeah, I get it. I know he was a Jet for a very long time, and then he was a Patriot.
We're talking about a guy who literally at one point shut down every single Hall of Fame elite receiver you could possibly throw at him for 1 year. That's
Quinyon,
like,
yeah.
Quinyon, when you're saying that about Quinyon Mitchell, I hope you know what you're saying, because Darrelle Revis, look, man, Ross Gardner got that comp, and not even he really compares to him. Darrelle Revis.
Let me just say this real quick. Quinyon Mitchell at the Reese Senior Bowl practices in one-on-ones. Now, anyone who knows football knows that one-on-ones are purposely geared for the wide receiver to win. You are a very good corner if you do not lose a one-on-one. If you don't lose one-on-one, you are pretty good at your job as a corner because you are supposed to lose. There's no help. You're by yourself on an island, and they can run whatever the fuck they want, right? Quinyon Mitchell covered people in one-on-ones at the Reese Senior Bowl practice so well that he looked bored while doing it. It was effortless. He was glued to these guys. Also, if you're a 40 guy, which I'm not, Nate Wiggins ran a 4.28 at 6'2", 185. Quinyon Mitchell at 6 foot, 195 ran a 4.33. They are literally lightning fast, and they glue to people.
Hold on. You said a 4.33 at 6'1",
195.
195?
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yes.
What kind of what? No, that's not right. No.
That's what I'm telling you, bro. This dude is insane. Okay, now I remember.
I'm looking this up.
No. This is real.
Here, I tell you what. We're going off the reservation right now because Quinyon Mitchell is number 12 on this big board, but we're going to scroll down to him. Here's Quinyon Mitchell.
Oh boy, here we go. Yo, the glazing is crazy.
We're glazing some Quinyon Mitchell today, baby.
Hold on. Go back to Nate Wiggins, the poor guy. Come on.
Here we go. He was third in forced incompletions, 11 coverage stops, and he had average depth of target of 12.3 yards. He is an 88.7 man coverage grade with a 43.5% completion percentage. His zone coverage grade is also 85.9, and his coverage grade overall is 91.6 with a run defense grade of 76.1. So this guy can play every single thing you want. In the last 2 years, he's had 6 picks. 6 picks. He has had an average quarterback or passer rating of under 50 combined in the last 2 years. He is an absolute monster. I tell you, Roman Wilson had probably one of the best Senior Bowl weeks of practice of anybody. Quinyon Mitchell made Roman Wilson disappeared when he covered him. That's how good Quinyon Mitchell was. So he ran a 4.33, did all that, and he runs routes for people, has great anticipation, and reacts to the ball before it even leaves the quarterback's hand consistently. This guy is a fucking problem. And when I say he could be the second coming of Darrelle Revis, I 100% mean it. This is a instant day one CB1 in the league. Now that I've now glazed that so much, we're going to go to my 1B corner.
Crazy. That was crazy. Okay, Nate Wiggins, let's do it.
Yeah, so now we're going to go to my 1B corner. Nate Wiggins.
That was crazy.
And Nate Wiggins, he's comparable, but if you look at those numbers comparatively to what I just showed you for Quinyon Mitchell, they're
crazy.
Just not quite as good.
No, Sammy, you need to understand this.
No, Sammy, listen, it's Quinyon Mitchell. Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm not I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No. Look, don't apologize to me. Apologize to Nate Wiggins. This was supposed to be his time.
Nate Wiggins, I'm sorry. You are my 1B corner. And if Cooper DeJean wasn't listed at fucking 7, I could talk about both of these guys without having to fucking drop back to 12th and then hop back up to 9. But Cooper DeJean's 7, so we have to fucking do this, all right? Now, Nate Wiggins, ultra fast guy. He's a little undersized at 185. That's the biggest question with him, is that he's kind of just a smaller guy. I mean, he's 6'2", lean frame, only 185 pounds, but he's lightning fast. I wonder how the physicality is going to get there at the catch point. I feel like, bigger wide receivers are going to bully him a little bit. I think that if he does match up with a Rome Odunze or, some of these larger bodied wide receivers that are in the NFL right now, that Nate Wiggins is going to have a problem. I think he's going to get bullied because he is only 185. I do think, however, that on a deep ball where it's just him and another guy running with each other and it's a little overthrown for the wide receiver, Nate Wiggins is going to run out there and get that motherfucker. So he's lightning fast. He has a lot of good traits about him. He's just not my number one corner in this draft. And it's probably what's messed up is that both of the things I've had a problem with PFF's board are at the cornerback position. Is that a little, I mean, what the hell?
I think it's only because you're just such a Quinyon Mitchell glazer that it really, like if we're being completely, look, I want to get this off my chest about Nate Wiggins. He played for Clemson and he did very, very well against my Miami Hurricanes. He did, the only touchdown he did allow though, it was against us. So I will say that, and I will digress there. I think the fascinating part about Nate Wiggins is his speed and how he can control his speed. I think you feel like when it comes to a deep route, he'll run with that deep route. If the wide receiver stops on a dime, he's going to be right with him. And that kind of coverage is insane. Now, his size is a big issue in my opinion, because I feel like if he presses, it's going to be a little bit like scary. Like I'll straight up like make it blunt.
It's going to be some George Pickens type stuff.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like that level. But I think he will bulk up. I think the team is going to like try to get him to bulk up a bit. And maybe the size doesn't matter. We saw Devontae Smith go like sixth overall, and he ended up being just fine. So now the difference is that they play both very different positions. So obviously there's a big difference there. But I will say, excuse me, I will say that Nate Wiggins, the fact that he's his size, right? And I'm talking about the fact that he's at this frame and has been able, like 6'2", 185 is not necessarily ideal, but he makes it work. And I think that's very important. I feel like if gaining this weight makes him slower and he can't react as quick, then don't change it. But at the same time, if at the line when it comes to press and he gets jammed and it's over for him, and you could just go around and you could just out muscle him and get wherever you want, that's a problem. So Nate Wiggins, I think he's actually my cornerback one for this class. I think that he was my cornerback one. But again, I think Quinyon Mitchell is not that far off at all either. But Nate Wiggins, in my opinion, this draft class for corners in general, it really doesn't have, other than apparently Quinyon Mitchell, a really solid cornerback one that I can say, hey, if we draft this guy, we have our corner. Quinyon Mitchell's good. I think he's even great. I just think that, and I think this is unfair, I want to see him do it against the NFL level, because I feel like Toledo is definitely a school. So I think we gotta see it. Look, no disrespect to you Toledo fans. I just think that we gotta see it at the Senior Bowl was great for him. I think the Senior Bowl really helped. We gotta see it at the NFL level. And I think that's why his school is really keeping him from like going up higher. I think that's why you're higher on him, Joe, than a lot of people are going to be.
Yeah, it's possible. Just remember, Darrelle Revis went to University of Pittsburgh. Not like a world killer over there either. So
it's an ACC school, you know.
I mean, but it's fucking Pittsburgh, right? It's fucking Pitt.
I get it. Look,
no offense to University of Pittsburgh fans.
Didn't Randy Moss go to Marshall? Let me digress.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like, hey, come on, man, you can't dog some dude for where he went to school. I mean,
that's true. That's true.
If you go somewhere and you dominate, you dominate it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how I feel about it.
We saw it with Sauce Gardner. So
exactly, we saw with yeah. So I mean, that's kind of how I feel. Like I said, Nate Wiggins is my 1B. I didn't say he was a 2. He's 1B. Like I wasn't like shitting on him. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. I just feel like the fact that you just left Nate Wiggins to dry and just completely did a breakdown on Mitchell.
To be fair, if you had not looked at me like I had a dick growing out of my forehead when I said what I said, I never would have went on this little Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
This is all your fault, Sammy. It's all your fault.
Okay, well, sure, yeah. But, just blame me.
I think Sammy and I have dominated the conversation on Nate Wiggins a little too much here, so I'm going to go ahead and let you do your take completely uninterrupted.
Oh my God, there was a lot to unpack in all of that. But let's talk about Nate Wiggins a little bit. He, to me, let's do a little bit of a comparison here. All right, if we say Quinyon Mitchell is Christian Gonzalez, Nate Wiggins would be the Emmanuel Forbes of this draft. Undersized, yes. Wild speed. He is insanely fast, and he's got some good technique. The biggest concern is just that run defense grade for me. Not necessarily something you want to see out of, a top 10 overall prospect. And yes, Nate Wiggins, if he goes to a, decent defense where he has, guys around him that can support him, he can do some real damage. Like, don't get it twisted. He can be a ball hawk out deep. And I think that if he goes to the right situation, he will absolutely end up being a steal of a pick for a cornerback. But he's got to go to, I think he's got to go to a defense that already has, a big physical corner that can take some of the hits that Nate Wiggins cannot. One more thing, Quinyon Mitchell.
My God.
Sammy, you want to tell me that the corner who was the number 1 corner last year, the number 1 corner this year, is not cornerback 1 in the draft?
That's an all NCAA.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. We just need yes, no. To be fair on Nate Wiggins, he did lock
Nate
up.
Wiggins is a damn good player, man.
Nate Wiggins is still a good player.
Nate Wiggins did have to go up against at least 4 wide receivers who are going to be drafted in the first 3 rounds. Johnny Wilson was Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman at Florida State. He went up against Xavier Restapro at
Montez Walker too.
Yeah, Tez Walker, Xavier Leggett. So there, and like I said, I mentioned Restapro because we were talking about the Hurricanes, so I had to mention Restapro for you, even though
Restrepo, but yeah, I got you, Joe.
Hey man, I'm uncultured. I can't pronounce it. I know. Indiana education show. Indiana education show.
Hey, this is a teachable moment.
Restrepo, like July, like
no, Restrepo.
Restrepo. Okay.
No,
yeah.
Okay, you know what?
I can't do it. I can't do it, man. I need it phonetically. I need to see it.
Yeah. You just need it in your blood, and you don't have it. So
I don't have it. So we're gonna move on to number 10, the last spot, even though we've already talked about 12.
My goodness.
Which is probably he's actually my tackle 2 in this draft. It's Talise Fuaga. I think that I saw him at the Reese Senior Bowl, and he, without a doubt, looked like everything you want in a tackle. Absolutely dominant. I mean, honestly, like the only reason I didn't talk about him as much as I talked about some of the tackles that I think are going to go later in the draft, who I'm very high on, who are also at the Reese Senior Bowl, is because I honestly believe that there's just no shot that he like goes number 1 tackle. But it's the same thing with what I was saying about what we said about Roma Dunze and Marvin Harrison Jr. If Joe Alt is not in this draft, Talise Fuaga is tackle 1. And, he's got similar traits. He's 21, just like Joe Alt. He's 6'6", 2 inches shorter than Joe Alt, and he's 334, like 12 pounds heavier than Joe Alt. And he moves very, very well. I mean, there's very few people in this
look at those grades
draft. Yeah, in this draft that do the things he's done. He is not allowed a sack in 3 years.
Think about
0.
Not
a single fucking one.
Wow.
All right. Like, can you imagine being that damn good at your job?
He does have a good amount of hurries, though.
He does have a good amount of hurries.
18 is there.
Yeah, 18 is there. But still, in 3 years, if all you told, like, he played over 1,500 snaps. He played over 700 pass block snaps. And in that amount, he only gave up 18 hurries and 5 hits. And did it all at the right tackle position, Sammy.
You know what, man? No, I'm not going to say it. Go ahead. Yeah, keep going. I'm not going to.
So if you have a left-handed quarterback and you want to protect his blind side,
oh my God,
this is your tackle 1. It is. He's played his entire career at right tackle.
I don't care. I want Joe Alt. I want him now. No, I'm playing. Look, Fuaga's great. He is great. But I couldn't help but notice this, and I'm not going to dominate the conversation too much because I think I have more of a negative point of view for Fuaga. I think when he's run blocking, he kind of struggles to connect when he has to move. Like, as in when he gets to the second level, he doesn't really connect. That bothers me. It really does. And I think defenders I know what it says. I see 0 sacks before you guys. I see it. Okay. Also see 18 hurries. I feel like he does get beat a bit. I feel like he gets beat with his hands a lot, but regardless of that, I think as a guard, he'd be really damn good, and I'd probably have a higher grade on him. That's me personally. I know what you're thinking. Sam, you're an idiot. I am, but hear me out. I think Fuaga at the guard would be a much more powerful force. I don't think he's played reps at guard at all, and that's completely fine. But when I see him play, I see more guard than I see tackle, and it's kind of weird. My thought process about this is kind of just, I see the tape and I'm like, man, if he were like, I feel like he doesn't he doesn't move too well in space, but when it comes to that bang bang pause, he moves a bit quicker. So I I'm not going to dominate the conversation any longer. I think Olu, in my opinion, I think is a bit better. Not that much better. I think Joel is head and shoulders above. I like Fuego. I think he's tackle 3. I just think he's a bit more. I just think, for whatever reason, I think as a guard, he works better. I don't know what it is. And when I see the tape, I just see a guard.
He would be a very large guard at 6'6".
He would. He would,
be a
right?
monster. Yeah. All right. But you're not
young, I'll tell you that much.
You're not far off. All right. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. There is a history of guards being taken very highly in the draft. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guards dating back to 1941 who have been taken in the first draft. In fact, the last one was Leonard Davis in 2001 at pick 2. You also have guys like John Hanna, 1973, pick 4. So there is a standard for guards being higher. And if Sammy, this question is for you. If Fuaga was a guard with these numbers, how high would you be willing to take him? Because you said your grade would be higher on him, and he's number 10.
I think he'd be. Am I going to pick him over Roma Dunze? I think he'd be top 7. How about that? I think he'd be top 7.
Okay.
I think he'd be over. I think he'd be over Olu for me as a offensive lineman prospect. I think he'd be the best guard prospect in the entire draft by far. So. That's where I stand on. But again, this is more semantics. I don't think he's going to transition to guard at all. It's just what I kind of see when I watch him play, when I watch the tape. So if he becomes a tackle and he becomes an all-pro, by all means, burn me at the stake. But I think when I watch the tape at Oregon State and the teams that he played against, by the way, he has to play against some stacked competition at Oregon State. Man.
Really good edge.
UCLA has a good pack. I think his name is Latu. He probably had to do a lot to get, a good grade against him. So when I see him play, I think guard. I think he'd be a top 7 prospect. Right now, he's top 15. So it's weird for me. I'm having a bit of I have a more of an unorthodox opinion on Fuega than most. I'll be honest. Theo Ash also posted a video that kind of solidified my point, and I was kind of like, "This is a sign. Let me bring it up in the podcast." So I knew you guys would bring. I think I know you guys would look at me with that kind of face.
It's kind of interesting though, because he reminds me a little bit of Tevin Jenkins, who the Bears drafted as a tackle and then kicked him over into guard, and he's been a mauler at guard.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I can honestly see a world where, we get a kind of similar situation. He gets kicked over to guard. It just, I don't know. It depends on, I guess, where he ends up going, because if there's a clear and desperate need for right tackle, Fuaga has to be your right tackle. He's done the work. He has been consistently great.
No, yeah.
Over those 3 years. But if you are drafting him more as an offensive lineman, you can plug him into a guard situation and get a really, really good guard. I actually really, really like that. And Sammy, like you said, that strength of schedule that he went up against, there were some dog pass rushers in the Pac-12. Don't get it twisted. And he did very, very well. And overperformed when he went against terrible competition like CU, a terrible defensive line that they had. But I digress. I really do think Fuaga is a great offensive line prospect. Like you said, that's actually a great way of putting it. He's a great offensive line prospect. Could take some lumps maybe as a tackle, which is weird to say, I know. But there is a difference between edge rushers in college and edge rushers in the NFL. Edge rushers in the NFL are wicked fast. They have bend. And if you don't have, like Sammy, like he said, if you don't have that technique, those winning with your hands, as it were, you can get your lumps pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are both right. I mean, I think that Fuaga, to me, I have him as tackle too. I think that he could be a right tackle. I think that's because in most of the times in the NFL, your best pass rusher is very rarely on the right side of the ball. So he'd be going up against a number 2 pass rusher in most situations, which, let's be fair, there's very few teams that their number 2 pass rusher is a world ender. I think the only one really team you could say had that this year was the San Francisco 49ers. But, I like Fuaga. I think that he's got that capability. I think at guard, that's terrifying. That's a massive human being working on the interior. And you think about him going up against a defensive tackle at his size and weight. The only thing that concerns me is leverage. How fast can you get out of a 3-point stance? Because if you remember in college, these guys aren't asked to put their hand in the ground a lot. So
right.
getting out of a 3-point stance, having played guard a little bit, I was not good at getting out of 3-point stance. If I could have my hand off the ground, I played very well. If I had my hand on the ground, I was slow as shit because I couldn't get my body up and out of the 3-point stance and didn't have that from that positionment, have the explosiveness needed to do that. That's kind of what comes into the question when you do to a transition like that. There's some of the technique things that you have to remember. Plus your as a technique as a guard, there's a lot more that goes on in the interior offensive line than people realize. You have to be very, very gap sound. I think as a tackle, you're not always so concerned with gap. You're kind of just making sure that you protect the edge and you drive the guy upfield. Like it's very, I wouldn't say it's simpler to play tackle because you have a lot to deal with, but you don't have to play inside a structure as much as I would say you do at guard. But no, Talise Fuaga, I think is 100% a top 10 talent. I can see how, Olu might be, possibly a little better than him in certain situations and what's going on here. So, I mean, it is absolutely surprising to me that we all have the same feeling on a lot of these guys. And then the cornerback position, I was the only one who's like, this is bullshit. But, Kyle, I'll go ahead and let you wrap this up for us, man. That is our top 10 for PFF. That's their top 10 big board right there.
There you have it. This draft is just so exciting because there's so much depth and you can get a lot of talent all over this draft. Like, don't get it twisted here, people. We are going to be going into the weeds. Joe has already been doing some deep dives into some of these later round prospects. There is going to be so much more draft content coming up, y'all. We're going to start doing mock drafts. We're going to start doing all these crazy hypotheticals.
Yes, I can't wait.
Everybody's lying to everybody, so we're going to fill in the gaps and try and be future tellers. But until the next time, it has been so great hanging out with y'all on the Gridiron segment. That is Joe. That is Sammy. My name is Kyle. Until the next time, peace.
With the release of J.C. Jackson, the Patriots take the #1 spot on the cap space leaderboard.